an annual basis, but we'll still be doing the same thing. So.
Okay, so you're going to monitor that so that we're not spending more to have the sale than we get from
Exactly.
Okay.
That's one of my points I was making tonight.
Great. Okay.
Thank you, sir.
Sheriff. Okay. Consideration of request from City of Bismarck for a resolution of support for a 5-year extension of the Bismarck Renaissance Zone. Who's got this one? Do we have anybody from the City of Bismarck that wants to provide input here?
I've got a question on it.
Okay, Commissioner Peluso.
I think we did this 8 years ago or 5 years ago, maybe in 2008. Be more than that.
15 years ago.
No, we extended it 8 years ago.
Mr. Chairman.
But that was that an extension or was that an expansion?
Mr. Chairman, Commissioners, what I did put in your package was, a letter from the city requesting the county consider the resolution of support, consideration of support for the 5-year extension. What we did back in March 17th of 2008 was this board, the County Commission, approved an expansion of the City of Bismarck Renaissance Zone.
So this is asking for an extension, not an expansion.
Mr. Chairman, Commissioner Peluso, I believe that's correct. And subsequent to what's in your agenda packet, Chairman Bittner called this morning and requested some more information. I provided that in front of you. It's separate from your agenda book, but it's information in front of you. There's a copy of a memorandum from the Department of Commerce. I highlighted some specific verbiage in regards to specifically to be considered for an extension. Commerce will need the following, and then a letter of support from the school district and county. I also, from some other information that I received from the City of Bismarck, was a listing of all the properties that are in the Renaissance Zone or that receive a benefit or an exemption through the Renaissance. There's a copy of pertinent sections of law, and then also some property tax information.
Mr. Chairman.
Commissioner Woodcox.
Is this a typo? This letter is dated February 12th of 2014. They've had this request from the Commerce Department for 2 years, and
Mr. Chairman, Commissioner Woodcox, I don't believe so. This is the information that I could get in regards to what the Commerce Department requires from the city to do an expansion. And that was the most updated information I had. I believe the city's Renaissance Zone expires May 1st of this year.
Well, for purposes of discussion, I'll make a motion we do not support the Renaissance Zone.
And I would second that.
Okay, I have a motion and a second. And prior to discussion, because I'm sure there will be some, I think there may be some people that want to address this or speak to this issue. Please come to the podium and give your name.
State my name. My name is Steve Schwab, resident of Bismarck. And I would like to bring up, I don't have the information that you folks have here, this handout. I wish I would have, so I'm going to kind of shoot off the cuff here. But we all know that the Renaissance Zone, pretty much if you took a map of it and overlaid it, it would cover the TIF zone in Bismarck. They kind of, brother and sister operation there. The TIF zone started in 1979. The Renaissance Zone, I believe, in 2001, and it has been revised approximately 7 different times. So obviously somebody's not getting something right. But if you would imagine for a minute owning, say, an office complex out of this Renaissance Zone, and you have people that have been leasing this property from you, say 10 years, and now this lease comes up for renewal, what is the benefit to go into the Renaissance zone? The main benefit is no personal property tax for 5 years. Not property tax, excuse me, income tax to the state. So basically, if you have a really good ongoing business 2 miles outside of the Renaissance zone, and the guy says, hey, I could pay more to lease space in downtown Bismarck, and yet I'll get the money back tenfold on the income tax. What they do between the TIF and the Renaissance zone, and this is experience speaking, you know what I'm talking about, is they don't create jobs. What they do is they displace jobs and pull them in. And really, you know, I think if the city really wanted something like this, they should tell us how many people have gone in there, been there for 5 years, and then left. But put yourself in that guy's or that gal's shoes that owns that business outside of these zones, including the Renaissance zone. It's not a fair level playing field to this guy. Not only that, he pays higher taxes on account of TIF zone. It is socially and morally wrong that time after time after time these programs keep coming to just a certain sector of town, which literally has created a welfare district called downtown, and everybody else pays for it. The sad thing about the whole thing is to think back to 1979. From that time on, and then they picked up the Renaissance zone, what have they been doing? They've been promising, the city's been promising, you know, when we get this all done, this property is going to come back online, and it's going to lower property taxes. How many people have passed to the next world and not seen a benefit, but believe this? At this point in time, we see the state budget. They're concerned about it. We know the Bakken isn't rocking the way it used to. I don't think you'll hear that slogan at the elections coming up. It just doesn't seem like people get it that, and this is the leaders of Bismarck get it, that things aren't what they used to be. I mean, this money flow isn't coming, and they're turning around and saying, well, you know, and it was said to me many times, well, the state pays for that. Well, who gives the state money? It's the citizens. So we're coming up against a lot of things here, and as far as taxes are concerned, we may have to pay more, the residents of Bismarck may have to pay more taxes because of the bust in the oil business. And yet, the city seems to think, well, hey, it's all right, let's just keep on giving exemptions to people that probably don't need them. And to me, it's morally wrong, it's socially wrong, and like I said, if you think about it, since 1979, there's been a lot of residents that aren't from Bismarck anymore, they're from upstairs, that never received a dime that they were promised on this stuff. And yet they continue to throw us this story that it's this, it's that. Well, I'm here and I'm kind of actually begging you, just don't pass this thing. It's time for this stuff to die. It's time for businessmen and businesswomen to pay their own bills. I honestly believe real business people pay their own bills. And this taking advantage of the taxpayers, the sad part about the Renaissance zone, it actually makes everybody in the state that pays taxes pay for this nonsense. It's a way to tax everybody in the state. If you really think about that, because somebody's going to make up the shortfall. So I really ask you, it's time, save us from the city. That's what I'm asking you. And I hope you see it my way and do not pass this. Thank you. Any questions?
Thank you. Any questions for Mr. Schwab? Thank you. The
Chairman,
motion is
have you made the same case to the city at some point?
Uh,
Are they going to have a public hearing on this at some time where you can do that?
I don't believe they are. They know very well where I stand, you know, and there's a little arrogance I feel there that we're going to plow away. You know, it's not, what kind of example is the government setting when they say, well, we're going to continue tax breaks and pick and choose winners and then turn around and subsidize TIF project for $34 million and come back to the taxpayer and say, hey, it's kind of your fault. We need to raise sales tax. But you have funds like the TIF fund, you've got funds like the Vision Fund that are nothing but slush. And they never bring that up. So the thing about it is, it's a fairness thing. Somebody's got to stop this craziness. Somebody's got to stick up for the citizens. And I do want to say, in the county, most of the citizens are in Bismarck. And I think that they're getting the bad end of the deal, but whatever. Okay. Tell you, I'll get the bad end of the deal tomorrow for this, but that's the way it is.
Okay.
And I thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Mr.
Thank
Schwab.
you.
Okay.
Good evening. I'll be very quick. For the record, my name is Dustin Geverlow. I handed out some information. One thing that I want to point out, and I included the bill history on it. I was the lone dissenting lobbyist opposing it. House Bill 2329 was the bill to expand the number of blocks that Renaissance zones can have. And so one thing to remember when you're considering this is by extending the time, you are also paving the way to extend the blocks. And that needs to be taken into consideration because if you've looked at the blocks that are under consideration by the city, many of them are spread out beyond the downtown area, which was discussed previously. Overall, I would like you to consider this to be an opportunity to voice your opinion with the city's various policies that divert money from the county and make your job more difficult. With that, if there's any questions, I would be willing to take them.
Commissioners, any questions? Commissioner Schoner?
This has been going on and on for years. How many years do you expect it to continue? What is the expectation? When would it end?
Well, when
your eyes?
when I testified on the bill to expand the blocks, it was very clear that the certain forces that are in favor of this would like it to continue forever. My message to both the Senate and the House committees was that if Renaissance Zone is so great, why isn't the entire state a Renaissance Zone?
Exactly.
And one point when I did point out the way that there is the overlap and the double dip on the Renaissance Zone and TIF in Bismarck, the reaction I got from one senator, and I won't name her name, was, that's Bismarck. We're not really concerned about them. But I think Burleigh County is. So with that, hopefully we can start the process of reforming these policies at the local level.
Okay. Thank you, Dustin. Any other questions? Okay, does anybody else wish to speak on this item?
Chairman and Commissioners, I'm Don Clement, and I'd like to just go over my take on this. This started 15 years ago, and I testified to the City of Bismarck on this particular deal, and I told them it's about time to take the training wheels off. And I believe that's the case. This has been going on for 15 years, and it expires on May 1st. And yes, you are correct on the date that they were given. That came from the 2013 legislature, and that particular notice came out in 2014. Well, May 1st is coming real soon, and now we're facing this, aren't we? I believe that over 95% to 99% of the people truly don't understand what's happening with the Renaissance Zone and the tax increment financing zone. I think if you had a public information session, and I've met with many people that I respect, and nobody understands this. The question is, how long will this go? The Renaissance Zone exemptions that have been granted up to this time are going to, 30% of them will probably come to the general fund. 70% of it is going to go into the TIF zone until at least 2026. What I'm asking for is to stop it. Because any grants that you make today will get a 5-year exemption and then 5 more years into the tax increment financing zone. You know, people, you know, at some point we have to recognize that we're all going to be facing tough budgets, whether we're in private industry or in the public. And we're all going to have to step to the plate. And I think it's time for everybody to step to the plate and start getting fairness going. I won't take a lot of your time, but I do think that if we continue to exempt people, that means that everybody else has to pay more. And I think we all know how budgets work in the public sector. There's a budget. There's taxable values that you get to tax, and you create a mill levy. And if somebody isn't paying their fair share, which hasn't been the case in Renaissance Zone and TIF Zone, Renaissance Zone since 2001, TIF Zone since 1978, then that means somebody else is paying their unfair share. And I ask you to vote no on this as far as a letter of support. And at the very least, if you can't vote no on it, call for a public hearing. But the city...
I'm sorry. The motion is to deny.
Motion denied?
So okay. You do not probably...
Sorry about that.
You probably wouldn't, from your position,
Right.
wouldn't be a vote.
Thank you. Thank you for your time.
Thank you.
Anybody else wish to speak on this?
Chairman Bentner, Commissioners, good evening. My name is Terry Fleck. Why don't you imagine for just a moment, and no one knows this better than you, that when I pay my property tax statement, my understanding is that part of it goes to the county, part of it goes to the city, part of it to the park board, and part of it to the school board. And so try to imagine all of the tax exemptions that exist in a Renaissance Zone. And imagine that all of us, if in fact we have that exemption in a Renaissance Zone, have to do this differently. Have to do this differently. We don't have a blanket that says we just get it. We have to come to the county. We have to go to the school board, and we have to go to the park board and say, listen, I'm a really great guy. I've got a great idea. I'm going to have a great business. And what I'd like you to do, and I know there's 300 of us that are going to ask this, I just don't want to have to pay my property taxes for 5 years. Well, if I'm not going to pay my property taxes for 5 years, then you're going to have to give every business in the county that same opportunity. That opportunity today doesn't exist. If my business isn't in the Renaissance Zone, then I don't get a 5-year property tax exemption. I don't get an unlimited sales tax exemption. I have to service my debt at the bank just like all the people who get the exemption. However, I start in the first 5 years of my business at a disadvantage. And I think it's time for the playing field to be leveled. I'm delighted that we have a no vote on the floor, and I'd like to say thank you very much, and I hope that you'll call the question, Mr. Chairman, and that you'll vote no as commissioners. Thank you for your time.
Okay, anybody else wish to appear on this item? One more time. Anybody else wish to appear?
Mr. Chairman,
Seeing none, Commissioner Woodcox.
anybody here from the Community Development Department? They sent us this letter. Anybody here to represent them? Or
That's what I asked.
City
first.
Commission?
No. Seeing none.
Mr. Chairman,
Any further discussion? Commissioner Schoner?
I see that this is a letter of support. That means if we don't support it, that doesn't mean that it's going to prevent it. Is that correct?
You know, I'm not an attorney and I don't understand the law. I did review the Century Code. It looks to me like the requirement from the Commerce Department is for it to be approved, it needs a letter of support from the schools and the county. So
Commerce.
absence a resolution of no support would be a no. I mean, so the motion is to deny the request. So a yes vote would deny the request, and a no vote, well, you know, would be the opposite. Okay. So, any further discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. Any other business for the good of Burleigh County?
Mr. Chairman,
Auditor Glott.
Commissioners, under other business, I don't know if the board wants to address the issue of the bleachers out at the complex.
I think we should.
Yes, Mr. Chairman, I agree with you. I think we have two options. We can either offer them for auction or sell them for scrap, and not all of them could go for auction. As I understand it, the cost of refitting them would be phenomenal.
Mm-hmm.
I think those are our two options.
Now, we're talking about the white, by the white building, the old
We're
beat up
talking
ones at
about the
white building.
old ones that we had to disassemble because they were out of code. And they've been sitting there since they were disassembled because we did not want anybody using them in that condition. So, Commissioner Schoner.
I got a question. Is there enough there to ask for bids on disposal of it? Is there enough there to be worthwhile to ask for bids? Is someone going to bid on it, disposing of it, or is there?
You know, I don't have the answer to that, but I think if we were to utilize county staff, if there's a possibility the county highway department would maybe be able to help haul them to the recycling place, that would be the cheapest and probably the best thing. Commissioner Jones.
Mr. Chairman, Commissioners, I've looked into that. And I'm told that, yes, we can take them down to the recycling and they can take care of them. However, we would get more for the aluminum were they dismantled prior to hauling them out.
Sure.
And I'm led to believe from talking to these gentlemen that we're looking at somewhere between $2,000 and $4,000. And just so we're all on the same page, the set of bleachers, and I believe it's just one set, down by the ATV track would be included in this. Those two are unsafe, according to NDRF. Mr. Larson, I believe his name was.
Yeah. Do you know who would disassemble them? Would you think have you talked to our?
I haven't
anybody,
talked to
or-
our people. I did talk to Park and Rec, Tony and Steve, who are the two gentlemen who've been cleaning up out there, and they will be more than happy to do it. I can certainly check with Marcus to see if he has some helpers that aren't busy at the time to get that done.
That all sounds reasonable to me. You know, and I can't see the need to hang on to them because they're old and they were kind of junk when they were acquired.
May I make this motion then that we dispose of them at the least cost to the county, but at the most profit that we can get for the aluminum?
I'll second it.
Motion and a
works.
second. Any further discussion?
Yes,
I'll-
Mr. Chairman.
Commissioner Woodcock.
We'll leave that decision up to Commissioner Jones, as it's her portfolio, and she can dispose of them at her leisure.
Yeah, I think so. Okay. All those in favor? Aye. Opposed? Motion carries.
Mr. Chairman, if I may add
Commissioner
one more
Jones.
thing. I neglected to tell you that we've become temporarily a bus parking lot for 5 weeks. Can't think of the bus company's name.
Harlow.
Apparently, they live in a mud hole and needed some place to park buses about the middle of May, somewhere between the 15th and 20th. And it doesn't seem to be interfering with anything out there.
Yeah.
So,
They had also called me and talked, and I certainly have no problem with that as long as it doesn't interfere with any other events, and it doesn't sound like it does.
Mr. Chairman.
So hang on, don't go away.
I got one more.
Commissioner Woodcock.
I got not on this. Are we done with that one? I just had, you're concerned about a question about the ownership of the land, and that bothered me. You talking about the sheriff, and, I mean, the jail, that
No,
portion?
not that portion, because I believe that portion, see, there was several separate purchases of land.
Okay,
At one point, a large part was purchased by the county, my understanding.
Yes.
From the state, right.
However, there was a Missouri Valley Fair Association that was involved and purchased, there's actually I think a big chunk of it that could be under them because their offices were way over on the other side of the road from the, to the south of the rodeo arena.
I know what you mean.
So, okay, so there may be a large portion of land that we need a quiet title. We have,
okay.
there's,
Okay.
I don't think there will be a problem. We just don't have those answers yet.
Answers. And there's one more question along that same line, in the fact that the extension service, on the north side of the extension service, there's major drainage issues. I was asked to have Engineer Hall take a look at it and bring in some gravel for certain. I, in turn, emailed Mr. Rhea to find out, because we have a buyout on our lease with the extension, to find out for, in fact, if we own that property and they own the building, or if it goes hand in hand. Right. And I have not heard back from him.
Right, that's all relative to this same
Yep.
question. That's all tied up. Before anybody leaves, on the consent agenda, is there any action required on the consent agenda?
Mr. Chairman, Commissioners, yes, there is a number of abatements, lost instrument surety bonds, gaming site authorizations, special event liquor license, and the National Public Safety Telecommunications Week proclamation. Mr. Chairman, I would recommend approval of the consent agenda.
Commissioners?
So moved.
Second.
I have a motion and a second. Any further discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? Motion carries. Any other business for the good of Burleigh County? Seeing none, we are adjourned.